Hello everybody, my name is Nemo and today we are playing some Magic again. I haven't uploaded much the last week because YouTube's just constantly been bombarding me, asking me to change my name to my real name on my Google email address is where they get your real name from, and it's just been constantly asking me, hey, do you want to change your name? Hey, how about now? You want to change your name? Hey, how about now? You want to change your name? Hey, you typed a comment in someone's video. You want to change your name? Hey, trying to upload. You want to change your name? Just super annoying. If anyone knows how to get YouTube to stop asking me to change my name to my real name, I'd be really happy about that because it's been driving me nuts. But anyway, we're gonna take a look at my elf deck, Sylvan today, and check out how I've built it. And I'm just trying to get these deck videos done, so you guys all know what my deck build is for them. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. The first thing to note here is 24 lands. When this deck first came out, when the expansion first came out, the first thing I thought about this deck is, hey, let's run it with like 22 lands, 20 lands maybe even, who knows? Because, you know, it's kind of an aggressive deck and you wanna get your stuff done. But as it turns out, that's not the greatest idea. This deck has a lot of draw power in it, as well as being aggressive, so it has some staying power. But the main thing is, tempo disruption kind of hurts this deck, so you can't be too fast about it. And what mostly happens with this deck is, rather than overwhelming the opponent with aggro, you usually just kind of get disrupted for a few turns until you can finally land like a Timberwatch Elf and get some power on the board, and then you usually like take them out in one or two big swings. That's usually at least how the deck works. And having 24 lands is useful because you can play multiple creatures in one turn, so that if they disrupt your one plan, you don't suffer for it for not having done basically anything for yet another turn. If you can play 2 threats a turn, then that's way better. So that's why you do want 24 lands, and with the draw power, it's not a big. You're gonna draw enough stuff the way I have it set up right now. And the other thing about 24 lands is that my highest curve creature is a forecast, and I kind of do want to play them on turn 4. And the thing about that is that if you have 24 lands in your deck, that's 40% of your deck. And that means that if you do the math, that means if you've drawn 9 cards, which is, let's see, if you've drawn 10 cards, which is turn 4 if you're on the play, then you actually, on average, have 4 lands, so that you can just lay a land each turn, on average, basically. So that works out pretty nicely, and we can just ramp through our deck, or well, not really ramp, but we can rip through our deck, I guess, and have a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and then on turn 5 we can drop another 4-drop, or a 3-drop and a 2-drop, whatever. So it's pretty nice. Or we can drop Joraga Warcaller with multi-kicker for 2. Pretty nice stuff. So here's how I have it set up. I like to have this sorted by cost, because I'm going to go over the 1-drops first with you. So we've got all the Joraga Warcallers in there. These guys are pretty awesome. They can make your whole force bigger, as well as just being an elf that gets on the board, which already usually makes your force bigger as well. And sometimes you want to cast them for 1. I mean, if that's that 1 extra damage you need from the Timberwatch Elf is all that you need, then dropping this for 1 is not a bad play. But usually you're gonna want to wait for this guy and multi-kick it for as much as possible, maybe for 2 or 3 extra counters on it, and get some stuff going. He also makes for a pretty nice combo with Immaculate Magistrate, but I guess we'll get to that when we get to Immaculate Magistrate. But yeah, he's normally not really a 1-drop. It's possible to drop him as a 1/1 if you need just the 1 damage extra. We've got Taunting Elf. This deck does not have any removal whatsoever. This is your only shot at dealing with obnoxious creatures on your opponent's side. And it's actually pretty dang good, because a lot of decks are tribal and they have lords, and they usually don't want to attack with their lord. Well, if you have a Taunting Elf out, then that is not a way for them to save their lord from dying. So Taunting Elf can basically easily take out opposing lords, whether it's through forcing them to attack you so as to not have to block the Taunting Elf with their lord, or just attacking, killing their lord with the Taunting Elf. Either way, it's pretty good. And just aside from that, it also allows you to deal a lot of damage with your other creatures. since they all of their guys have to block the Taunting Elf, and then your other creature can get through. Of course, that can be a little dangerous if they have a removal spell in response for your other creature, but most of the time, just from playing this deck, most of the time the opponent as well as you is tapping out. And they usually want to use their removal on their turn rather than at instant speed. So we've got some Essence Wardens here. I didn't have room for the third one, but I really like these. They help you gain some life, and again, like I said, this is more like some kind of weird combo each deck than really an aggressive deck. It just delivers a lot of damage out of nowhere. So you still gotta stay alive until that time, like against zombies or against Evanston's Glory. Then basically they're the aggressor, and you'll want to be able to stay alive in those races. Since you don't have any removal, I mean, you're basically every game with this deck is going to be a damage race because of lack of removal. So you definitely need to gain life, and we've got all 4 of the other gain life elves in there, the Well-Wishers, but I found that even that was not enough. We still need some Essence Wardens as well. So pretty nice card there. And the one drop I'm not running is Glake. I guess I get to that after the other ones. Copperhorn Scout, there's a lot of stuff like Timberwatch Elf and other stuff that taps and puts a lot of counters on your dudes. And with this guy, that's a pretty sweet combo. He attacks, I mean, before attacking you, put the counters on this guy, he attacks, untaps your dude, you put more counters on this guy. This is your attacker of choice, basically. This deck kind of resembles an Exalted deck, because a lot of the time you are just attacking with one guy. But it's not really the same thing, but yeah, whatever. But Copperhorn Scout just really works well with the synergy in this deck. Spirit Tracer also works really well, especially against the zombie deck. They don't have flyers unless they run like Nightmare or something. And this guy can just keep on getting in there. Them not being able to block this guy really helps. It's not a great attacker of choice, basically. So you want this guy. He is really actually pretty dang good. We got the Glade Cover Scout I'm not running. It's a 1/1 of Hexproof. You'd think if this deck is kind of similar to a Exalted deck where you're usually attacking with one dude, then it would be pretty nice if that one dude had Hexproof so they can't insta-kill it when you're attacking, so you waste your turn. But as it turns out, when you're playing this deck, what the opponent usually wants to do instead of that is just use the removal on their turn, so that your Timberwatch Elf is gonna die. They want to use their removal on Timberwatch Elf and Immaculate Magistrates, and they want to kill those on their turn so that you can't untap with them. So the Hexproof on this guy as an attacker actually rarely matters, because if you got the pump ability from the Timberwatch Elf, then they want to use their removal on the Timberwatch Elf instead. So he's actually usually just a 1/1 with no ability. The Hexproof rarely matters, so that's why I prefer the Essence Wardens, and I obviously prefer these other, the Copperhorn Scout and the Spirit Tracer, because they're just really great. I'm kind of sad not running this one, because I kind of like the art. She's hot, okay? There, I said it. We've got Insist here, which is better than the card in, I think it's like, dang it, I always forget what the deck is called, the other green deck. I'm just, sorry, I have to check it now, I cannot not check it now. Hunter Strength, right, there we go. That has a similar card to it, but that one doesn't draw you a card, which makes it pretty worthless in comparison to this one. This one is way better. But you still don't want to play this. The 1 mana you use on this is actually pretty hard to justify in this deck, because you usually are exactly tapping out. You're usually just playing exactly what you want to play. You've got so many elves, so many choices of cards you want to be playing, and you usually maximize your mana, and you just don't have the 1 mana left over to use on Insist. And the drawing a card isn't super relevant on it if the ability itself isn't useful. So. We obviously have Rancor. Well, I say obviously, but there is actually a thought that can be had about not adding Rancor to the deck, because you can't draw it off of some of the draw spells this deck has, but it's still just such an amazing card, and Trample is something you really need. And like I said, you're usually attacking with one dude and pumping it up, so having Trample on the guy is pretty nice. And, you know, it comes back into your hand. It's just a really good card. regardless, so you want to run it. Oh, we got a sort by cost again. Can I? Nope. It only goes to the right. Alright, whatever. So next we've got the Fauna Shaman. Just a great card. I mean, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it. This is tutoring on a stick, and you can keep on tutoring. Yes, you have to sink 1 mana into it, and like I just mentioned with the assist, you don't always want to do that. But being able to just tutor up whatever card you need is very, very powerful, and I definitely don't want to not run Fauna Shaman. And especially, I mean, if you look here, you can tutor up Sylvan Messenger and go off and draw a bunch of more cards if you need to. Which is just really nice. You can, like, I don't know, tutor up, where, there we go, Gem Palm Strider or something. If you're losing a race, you can tutor up Well-Wisher if you really need to gain life. You can get Azuri, you can get this guy, Imperious Perfect. There's so many good cards that you want to be able to just tutor up. And this really helps. It's just an amazing card. And sometimes you don't have the time to use its tutor ability. It's still a 2/2. It's still gonna be dealing damage, and I still think it's way better than a 2/3. Because the toughness rarely matters. It's the damage you're interested in that they're gonna deal. So 2/2, 2/3, not that big of a difference. And this one has a really big upside there. We've got the Elvish Vanguard here. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Elvish Vanguard. So this is Champion of the Elvish, I guess. Champion of the Sylvan. Something like that. It does the same thing that Champion of the Parish does, except for elves, and it's a 2 cost instead of a 1/1. Still really good. And in the mirror match, notice this. I'm gonna be repeating this a lot for a lot of cards, but notice that it's not whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control. Nope, just any elf that enters the battlefield. So the mirror match for this deck is kind of broken. But yeah, pretty nice card. Talara's Battalion. Really nice. Like I said, you usually want to be dropping multiple threats on a turn, and this is one hell of a threat to be dropping in conjunction with another threat. It's also it's just big. I mean, 2 cost 4/3 trample, really nice, and trample is very relevant, like I mentioned with Rancor, because you want some trample to ensure that you guys are going to actually hit the opponent. If you're gonna be attacking, then you're not leaving blockers back, so it's kind of hard if you're losing the game to turn around the tide if you don't have trample, because they can just jump block and then attack you back, and however many good dudes they can throw away to jump blocking, that's so many turns you're going to be behind in turning around the game. So trample, really key ability for this deck to have. We've got Gem Palm Strider. He's not amazing. I usually don't have the mana left over to cycle him, so I'm usually playing him as a 2/2, but he has the upside, and again, better than Nissa's Chosen. So, and you want to have a bunch of 2 drops in this deck, so it's kind of needed. You got Well-Wisher. Again, basically any game with this deck is going to be a damage race in some form or fashion, and being able to gain life every turn for each elf on the battlefield is huge. You can gain a lot of life with these. So all 4 of them are in the deck. Now the 2 drops I'm not running. Gaia's Herald. Creature spells can be countered. Doesn't matter most of the time. I mean, I guess it matters against Mind Maze. It doesn't really matter against Dodge and Burn, because this deck is already pretty awful to play against Dodge and Burn anyway, and this is probably not going to help enough. So, yeah, I guess against Mind Maze it could be useful, but again, most of the time you're dropping 2 threats on a turn anyway, so if they counterspell your first threat, you're still not really that pissed off. We got Nissa's Chosen. Like I said, it's just a 3/3. It has an ability here. If it would die, put it on the bottom of its owner's library instead. I think there's only very few ways to actually shuffle your library and get another use out of the guy, so he's not, his ability totally isn't relevant most of the time. Yeah, I mean, I think he has some kind of synergy with Nissa herself. There was a Planeswalker that could tutor this guy up, so that's basically the idea of this guy. You can keep on tutoring him up with that Planeswalker, I guess. But in this deck, without the Planeswalker, it's not really that great. Although he has pretty big stats. I mean, it's a 2/3 for 2 mana. That's not bad, but just not as good as the other 2 drops. We've got Azuri, Renegade Leader. I mean, being able to overrun on a stick is insane, and even if you don't have the mana for it, which you frequently don't even have the mana for it, you have other things to be doing, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but that's the truth of the matter. But still, the fact that he can regenerate another target elf is just really, really powerful, so definitely want to include him. We've got Imperious Perfect here, make all your elves bigger, and if you know, he's an engine, so if you ever get the time, or she, I guess I should say she is an engine, so if you ever get the time and, you know, to use her ability, then you can start putting elves on the battlefield, and that's pretty sweet. If you ever have mana left over, putting an extra elf on the battlefield, always nice. Again, usually not that relevant, but there are games where this is basically the only way to win, because you spent a lot of stuff trying to do things, and you know, you kind of then have to kind of hope that this one stays alive and starts making tokens, and eventually overwhelm the opponent with them. Sometimes that's the gameplay, you know. Timberwatch Elf, key card, very key card. You want all 4 of these, there's just no question about it. Tap, target creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of elves on the battlefield. This is basically the card that the deck is built around, and yeah, you want all of them. So, that's all I can say. I mean, and like I said, this usually means that since your elves aren't that big on their own, you're basically relying on this guy to, or guys like him. We've got Immaculate Magistrate on the 4-drops as well, which is similar to this one. This is the way to win the game, basically. You eventually just make a big attack, pumping up a guy with Timberwatch Elf, or 2 Timberwatch Elves, or if it's the Scout guy, the Copperhorn Scout, then you pump up Copperhorn Scout, attack with Copperhorn Scout, untap your Timberwatch Elf, pump up Copperhorn Scout some more. Yeah, just sick combos you can pull off there, and that's your game plan, basically. Another pretty nice game plan is Alpha Status, actually, especially in the mirror match. This just wrecks everybody. But +2/+2 for each other creature on the battlefield to share a creature type with it is insanely powerful. But personally, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I forget that it's only for each other creature on the battlefield to share a creature type, and it doesn't count the creature you enchant. So your math may be off there, so keep that in mind. But just a really, really powerful card, really sweet. You can't draw it off of Lead the Stampede or off of Sylvan Messenger, but it's still just an insane card, and you usually just win if you play this and the creature doesn't immediately get killed. So very, very powerful there. We've got 2 Lead the Stampedes. There are 4 in the deck in total, and there could be a case made for running all of these Lead the Stampedes and all of the Sylvan Messenger. Personally, I think 6 in total is enough, and I don't want to get my hands clogged up with draw spells, because then I have to play draw spell before I can play my dude. And tempo is really a way this deck loses. You definitely lose. I found that you lose to a tempo a lot more than actually running out of cards with this deck. I didn't really, out of all the games I played so far, I didn't really ever run out of cards with 6. It's gotten close, but that's just nice, because that means I run the perfect number, right? But what I have lost to is just playing a Timberwatch Elf, the opponent having a much better board state than me, and I play out a Timberwatch Elf and they immediately remove the Timberwatch Elf, get another turn to attack me, I'm further behind. Next turn I play another Timberwatch Elf, they remove it, they attack me yet again, I'm yet another turn behind, and if I have to play a Lead the Stampede in between, then that's pretty bad. I don't want to be doing that, because I'm even further behind at that point. So you want to have enough that you don't run out of cards, but you don't want to have so many that you lose to the aggro decks, because your hand is clogged with them. So 2 seems nice to me, and the reason I took out 2 Lead the Stampedes rather than 2 Sylvan Messenger is because Sylvan Messenger is just better. This guy reveals the top 4 cards of your library and puts all elf cards revealed in your hand. This one reveals the top 5 cards of your library, and puts all creature cards revealed into your hand. The difference between putting all creature cards and only all elves is if you run something like Groundbreaker, then you get to get Groundbreaker, but usually, I mean, in this deck, the way I've set it up, I only run elves. I don't run any other creatures that are not elves. so it doesn't matter to me. And this looks at one more card, which you may draw. There's actually per card, since I'm running 30 creatures, that means that every card is 50% chance that it's going to be another creature. And so that means that for this card, since I'm looking at 5 cards, I get 2.5 creatures on average. For this card, since I'm looking at only 4 cards, I get 2 creatures on average out of the deal. But let's not forget that Sylvan Messenger itself is a creature. So actually you're getting 3 creatures on average out of the deal, with a guaranteed 1 creature out of Sylvan Messenger. That seems a lot better to me, and the 1 mana difference that they make, for that 1 mana you're not going to be able to cast a 2/2 trample. So, and again, trample is really important, so it's definitely a win condition as well as drawing you a lot of cards. So I think Sylvan Messenger is just way better than Lead to Stampede. It's not even a question for me. So let's look at the other 3 drops that I'm not running. We've got Collar of the Claw, which is a nice card. He doesn't make elves, which is a little unfortunate, but he is an elf himself. I just found that I don't really need this card, and again, I'm usually tapping out to play my threats, because I'm usually behind on the board, and just having to keep mana open for this guy is not a good idea. What if they don't mass removal your guys? You're another turn behind. So I don't like it that much in this deck. I mean, there are decks you can build that basically use his ability in the correct fashion, like build your deck around stuff like the Collar of Claw, and he's way better in those decks. I actually saw a forum post where somebody counted out the number of times that the cards in Sylvan Might are used in actual tournaments, and Collar of the Claw got a surprisingly high number, and I think that's because those are the kind of combo decks that really make use of his ability. In this deck, he's kind of just thrown in because he's an elf, and I don't think you get the most out of his ability. And I guess, I mean, yeah, against decks that run a lot of mass removal, mostly Lords of Darkness, then he seems like a great idea. But even then, what if they play like a huge demon, and you spent your turn waiting for them to mass removal your dudes, but they didn't? I don't know. And again, with all the card draw here, mass removal isn't even that big of a deal. So that's my thought on it. We've got Groundbreaker here. 3 cost, 6/1 trample haste. At the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Groundbreaker. He is the green ball lightning. He's like the time shifted version. I think he's from Planar Chaos. And he's the time shifted version of Ball Lightning. Maybe you'll remember Ball Lightning from the previous Duels game. Or, no, actually it wasn't 2012, wasn't it? It was in Cloudburst. That was the Izzet deck back then that had Ball Lightning, which was red, red, red. And exactly the same stats as this one. This one's green. The problem with Ball Lightning in Izzet was that it was red, 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 and it was a dual color deck. The problem with Groundbreaker in this deck is it's not an elf and it dies after it's done its job. And again, you're usually behind on the board in the first couple of turns. And this guy doesn't help you stabilize at all. If you draw him too early, he is just a dead draw. And you probably don't like drawing him at that point. If you draw him at just the right time, then it's perfect. But if that right time is going to be when you're going to be, turning the game around anyways. And I don't see this guy. This guy, most of the time, isn't going to make that much of an impact. It's either going to be useless or it's going to be overkill. And very few times it's going to be just enough to allow you to turn around the tide and get you to be the aggressor. Or finish the opponent off out of nowhere. And then we've got these Elvish Branch Benders, which are worse versions of Timberwatch Elf. I couldn't really find a spot for them, and the thing is, turning a forest into a dude, what if they kill your forest dude then? And then maybe you lost your forest that you needed to cast spells. I mean, if you don't have mana left over, then you also can't use his ability because you want to be playing a spell with that forest. I don't know. Seems kind of much worse than Timberwatch Elf, and I don't really have room for it anyways in the free drops. I've got so many great free drops already here that I definitely want to be playing. The next one is Beastmaster Ascension. I can definitely see this card being useful, but the thing is that most of the time you're trying to just build up your side and have a bunch of elves, And if you already have a bunch of elves, you're probably already winning. But the thing is, I mean, I guess the way in this deck you would play with Beastmaster Ascension is not to attack with one dude and get another counter, and attack with another dude next turn and get another counter. The idea is that you have 7 dudes on the table and you trigger this at once, or you attacked once and had a counter on it, you have 6 dudes on the table. I don't know, something like that. Then it could be pretty good, but it's not a dude, and I want to be pretty scarce with the amount of not dudes I'm running, because Lead the Stampede and Sylvan Messenger can draw them, so... I'm not a huge fan of Beastmaster Ascension in general anyways, but I can see it working in this deck. I don't know. I think there are better things to be playing. We've got Blanchwood Armor, which is kind of interesting. Most of the time you're gonna have more elves on the table than you're gonna have forests on the table, which means that Timberwatch Elves is gonna make a much bigger impact than Blanchwood Armor. So, you know, there's that. And I don't know. I want to be playing Timberwatch Elves and making my dudes big with that, because I can draw them with Lead Stampede and Sylvan Messenger rather than you know, stuff I can't draw with Sylvan Messenger or Lead Stampede. So this doesn't seem too amazing to me. We have Genesis Wave, which is just kind of bad in comparison with Lead Stampede and Sylvan Messenger. The upside is you get your dudes on the table immediately. The downside is that, I mean, what do you gotta play this for? If you play it for 1, you may get a 1-cost elf on top. That's all you get for 4 mana. If you play it for 5, you get maybe 2 2/2s. Still not amazing. You can definitely do better than that. If you play it for 6, I mean, you can get 3 dudes on the table. I guess maybe at that point it starts being useful, but you rarely even make it to 6 mana with the deck. I don't know, it seems bad to me. So we go to the 4 drops, and that's right, I'm not running Heedless One, I'll get to it in a second. We've got Immaculate Magistrate, which is just a better version of Timberwatch Elf. And Timberwatch Elf is already pretty amazing, so you definitely want to run these. Just, you know, permanent counters on your dudes. And like I said, there's a sweet combo you can do with Immaculate Magistrate and Joraga Warcaller, because Joraga Warcaller says that other elf creatures you control get +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Joraga Warcaller. And Timberwatch Elves doesn't actually give +1/+1 counters, it gives just +X/+X until end of turn. That's an entirely different thing. But with Immaculate Magistrate, you are actually putting counters on your dude. So if you put them on Joraga Warcaller, all your guys get those counters. Very sweet. We got Sylvan Messenger, and like I said, this is just, you want this card draw. It's powerful. I already talked about why I like this over Lead the Stampede, so I guess there's not that much else to be said about it. Heedless One, I just couldn't fit into the deck. It's not because it's not a 4-drop, because I'm running 24 lands anyway. I think it would be fine to add more 4-drops, but I just couldn't find anything to replace for them. I think you really need Well-Wishers, you really need all of this other stuff, and it's just better to have those. And Essence Warden is really useful in the whole damage race stuff. And the problem with Heedless One is the times it's good, it's probably overkill. Because if you have a lot of elves on the table, you probably have like a Timberwatch Elf on the table as well. Some way to pump up you guys. And all you really need from this guy is the trample, and it being big is you know, just a bonus basically. And this guy has trample as well. He's also 4-drop, and he's really good on an empty board, whereas this guy is totally terrible on an empty board. That's my father, and anyway, I just couldn't find room for him. I think they're really good cards though, and definitely very, very powerful in the mirror match. But I don't really build my decks for the mirror match. So we've got some weird card here, Slate of Ancestry. This is so awful, because it kind of wants to protect you against mass removal by drawing cards for each creature you control, so that you can restock your hand. But then if they mass removal while this card, you need to have 8 mana out to play it and immediately use it. So most of the time you're going to play it, and then you can use it next turn. But then they're mass removal on their turn, and you're stuck with nothing. So it seems pretty bad. We got Primitive Etchings, which is just, again, worse than Sylvan Messenger, so why would you want to play this? Nope, no thanks. I want to make an impact on the board. I don't want to spend my time durdling and do nothing. I mean, drawing cards is nice and all, but no. Ambush Commander. Yeah. Nice way to set yourself up for a really bad way to lose the game. I mean, somebody plays like I don't know, like you're playing against Dodge and Burn and they do the whole 2 damage at instant speed to all your dudes. When you got this guy on the battlefield, you lose all your forests. You lose that game. Like, that is just Armageddoning yourself at that point. It seems so bad, so bad. No. I mean, he can definitely win games, but it's just... I don't want to set myself up for losses like that, and he's a 5 cost. I don't think we need to even go to the 5 cost cards in the deck. I think we got plenty of power in the 4 and less mana cost cards, so yeah, no thanks. We've got a Voice of the Woods. Actually, hang on a sec. Okay, so they make... Well, alright, so they can't actually blow up all your lands by doing 2 damage to them, because you can just sack some lands to make the other ones bigger, because the lands become elves. Okay, well, alright, so that's not true, but what if they play Damnation, you know? Anyways, I don't think you need it anyways, so... Voice of the Woods is... Yeah, kind of interesting, but if you have 5 untapped elves, if you have 5 untapped elves, you're probably in a pretty good position that turn anyways, and I don't know. This guy is not gonna have haste, the green elemental creature you make, so it's not even gonna have haste. You gotta do it on your opponent's end step. Seems pretty bad. Seedborn Muse, I can definitely see this one working actually. I think it's definitely the best of the 5-drops to be running. I don't really want to be running 5-drops though, so that's why it's not in there, but it's actually pretty powerful. I mean, untapping your guys. Like I said, the the Copperhorn Scout is amazing for that reason, and just getting to use your Timberwatch Elf on your turn and on your opponent's turn is pretty powerful. But let's say you have like a Timberwatch Elf on the battlefield and you're debating between dropping another Timberwatch Elf or dropping the Seedborn Muse. Well, if you drop the Seedborn Muse and they kill your Timberwatch Elf, you basically don't have, you don't really get to use this guy too well, because you guys are that small that you probably don't want to be locking anyway without a Timberwatch Elf on the battlefield. Whereas if you drop the other Timberwatch Elf, at least next turn you have another Timberwatch Elf that you'll be using. So I think Seedborn Muse doesn't make it, but it's actually one that you might consider running out of the 5-drops, so definitely not a bad card. Weatherseed Tree Folk is just not an elf. It's why I'm playing a 5/3. Yeah, it comes back to my hand, but I got enough draw spells that I'm probably got something to do anyway, so whatever. And plus I'm spending 5 mana on a 5/3 when I could be dropping 2 elves or something. Coat of Arms, no thanks. I'm not even really... I don't know, it's just pretty bad. I mean, there are multiple tribal decks in this format. This is not the only tribal deck. You could just be doing way better things in turn 5 anyways than Coat of Arms, even if this was the only tribal deck. Asceticism, creature you control of hexproof. 2 to regenerate target creature. Not that relevant, to be honest with you. I don't know. Big card to be playing. If you don't have a lot of elves, it's useless. If you do, you're probably already winning. So yeah. You don't need that many turns to win with this deck once it starts rolling. Verdant Embrace, 5 cost enchant. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has at the beginning of each upkeep put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. If those tokens were elves, I'd consider it, but they're not. Enlarge, I thought about this for a bit, but I don't think it's that amazing actually. +7/+7 trample. I'd rather run Rancor as an additional way to give my guys some trample. But if there wasn't Rancor, I might run Enlarge just because the trample is useful. And this is one of those cards that you can immediately smash in with. Whereas if you're playing Timberwatch Elf, you have to wait a turn before you can actually do anything with it. So that's the advantage to Enlarge compared to stuff like that, and even compared to Heedless one, but yeah, I don't know. Mythic proportions. This is just getting ridiculous. Yeah, no thanks. 7 mana. Biorhythm, I guess in a lot of cases you're gonna have more creatures out than the opponent, so if you play this you simply win. But it is 8 mana, so no thanks. But anyways, that's the deck build. My name's been Nemo. My name will still be Nemo in the next video when we're gonna get some gameplay with this deck. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you then.